My guest on the live stream tonight, June the 23rd, 2023, will be Amy Peikoff, who is an American writer, blogger, and a professor of philosophy and law. And Peikoff, until very recently, was the chief policy officer at the social media platform Parler. She is now holding that similar position at BitChute. So, Amy is a very interesting person. I first ran into her on the Yaron Brook show. She's an objectivist, and she has an objectivist blog and podcast called Don't Let It Go. She was once married to Leonard Peikoff, who is the intellectual heir of Ayn Rand, and I very much look forward to talking to her. And what I'd like to talk to her about is the prevalence of cancel culture and the carte blanche that tech companies seem to have to break their promises. So, what happened with Parler is that they had an agreement for hosting, and they were deplatformed by Amazon Web Services. And of course, all these tech companies have in their contracts something that says that if you violate community guidelines or certain kinds of standards, then they can cancel you without further ado, and that's just something that they can do. And so if you try to bring a lawsuit for simple breach of contract, that doesn't come off very well. That's not very successful. Now, looking at the documents from the litigation between Parler and Amazon Web Services, I noticed that at one time they tried to bring up the Sherman antitrust law, and they suggested that this was being done in order to hurt their business to promote Twitter at the expense of Parler, and that didn't fly, and that was later dropped. But one of the things that I would like to talk to Amy about is, do we really have to talk about this in terms of some kind of odd public interest legislation, such as the Sherman antitrust law, which may or may not even fly for those of us who believe in free trade and the right to enter into whatever contracts you like. So isn't there another way to handle this? And the legal remedy that I think would be interesting is called promissory estoppel. So promissory estoppel is a remedy for a broken promise which isn't quite an enforceable contract. One of the cases that is well known for promissory estoppel was about a company that made a promise to one of its employees that she could retire and have a pension. So she retired early and started receiving the pension that the company told her she could get. And then when she was sick with cancer and at the most inconvenient time, the company decided to stop paying the pension. And it turns out the company really didn't have to give her this pension because it wasn't in her contract, so it wasn't enforceable under contract law. But under the doctrine of promissory estoppel, if you make someone a promise that you know will induce them to take an action that is extremely detrimental to them, and then they take that action in reliance of your promise, and you just decide to renege on that promise is enforceable, not under contract law, but under equity. Okay, so supposing that our contracts with the likes of Amazon and YouTube and Twitter are all cancelable under some kind of boilerplate clause in all of their contracts that says, hey, if we decide that we don't like what you're doing, we can terminate you at any time. I'm not sure that if you induce someone to think that those services will be provided in return for a fee, and you're told that, unless you do something highly illegal, we are not going to cancel you, and then you don't do anything illegal, but they don't like what you did and they canceled you, that if that is not enforceable under ordinary contract law because of that boilerplate language in the contract, shouldn't it be enforceable under promissory estoppel? I think that the attitude that we should take to all of these issues of cancellation is that canceling a company or canceling an individual is the same way. Suppose that you signed a lease that was month to month, but that made you, you believed that you would be safe to stay there unless the building were sold, or unless you stopped paying your rent, or if you created some kind of health hazard. But under all other conditions, you believed that you had the right to live there. So you bought furniture, you bought equipment, maybe you even painted the walls or did some things to make the apartment livable. You invested in it. And then one day, someone overhears you saying something that they don't like. Maybe you voted for a different candidate for president or garbage collector than they thought was the best one. And at that time, you suddenly get a notice from your landlord saying, you know what, you may not have realized this, but there was a clause in our agreement that said we can throw you out for believing in things that we don't believe in, or having different opinions from us. And so now we're giving you notice and you have to leave right away. And maybe not even 30 days notice. Maybe they just throw all your stuff out to the curb. And you might say, well, that would never happen to an individual. That only happens to companies. Well, I'm not sure that that's true. Have you heard of the man who was canceled by Amazon? An Amazon driver thought that the man had spoken a racial slur. And we don't know if that actually happened or not. But regardless of this, the man had his whole house. It was a smart home. He had it wired through Alexa. And Amazon shut down his entire smart home just based on the testimony of that driver that he had said a bad word. This is all the same issue. It affects all of us. So what do I think? Doesn't matter what I think. Let's ask Amy Peikoff what the legal stance on this should be. And while we're asking her that, I'd also like to ask her what Ayn Rand would think about what is going on right now and the way that the left has taken over all of the tech companies. Why are corporations behaving this way? What happened to the profit motive? It seems as if they're motivated by ideology and not profit. Why is this happening? And would it be better if there were no corporate entity and if we only had sole proprietorships and partnerships? Because in a sole proprietorship and in a partnership, all of the partners are jointly and severally liable for the acts of the company. In a corporation, the so-called owners, the stockholders, have no skin in the game. So, is the corporate entity the best way for the economy to be conducted? And what would Ayn Rand say about this? Amy Peikoff is a highly articulate, logical person, and I look forward to hearing what she has to say. I also very much enjoyed painting her image. I used watercolors of the least expensive sort. They are Crayola watercolors. And I painted her in a pocket sketchbook from A Daler-Rowney. And the size is 3.5 by 5.5. Please tune in tonight on my main channel to hear what Amy Peikoff has to say about these issues. And if you like this video, please press like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.